What do you think the number one mistake house flippers make when making offers to motivated sellers? Is it making lowball offers? Is it a lack of building rapport? Is it an inability to get to the best deals first? Well, in this training video, I'm going to share with you the number one mistake house flippers make when making offers to motivated sellers, and I'm going to show you what process you should take in order to get the biggest discounts. All this and more coming up. What's going on, clever investors? Cody Sperber back again, and I'm about to show you how to get way more offers accepted from motivated sellers and at way bigger discounts. But first, if you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is a place where I show you how to break free from the rat race using creative real estate investing techniques. So if you want to make an embarrassing amount of money in a short amount of time, then you're at the right place. Just make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, turn on post notifications. That way you're notified whenever I drop fresh new content, just like this video right here. For everybody else, welcome back. Let's dive on in. All right, let's talk money. Specifically, how to make a lot more of it by getting more offers accepted. Now, when I was a brand new real estate wholesaler, I followed like the typical process for making offers and getting them accepted. Step number one was I generated a lead. Step number two was to get on the phone with the seller to learn more about them and their housing situation. Step number three was to do my market research and analyze the deal. Step number four was to create and make an offer to the seller. And step number five was to negotiate with them until they either said yes, at which point I would start trying to find a cash buyer. And if they said no, I just put them into a follow-up campaign or refer them over to a real estate agent for a more traditional sales process. And it's this five-step process that pretty much every real estate investor and wholesaler typically does, but there's a major problem with this approach. Now, I realized that I was wasting a ton of valuable time working on step number three, which was doing my market research and analyzing the deal so I can come up with an offer price. So I asked myself a very important question. What should come first? Doing my research and then making an offer, or making the seller an offer, getting the property under contract, then doing my research afterwards? Now, this is a very intriguing question, considering doing research and making an offer just seems like the natural progression of things to do. So I stepped back from my business and I looked at doing research and estimating repairs more closely. And first off, at the time, it was taking me about 15 to 20 minutes per property to properly comp a deal and another few hours estimating repairs properly. Now, if you're new to real estate investing, comping a property is the process of looking at all the recently sold properties that have recently sold and comparing those to the subject property that you're trying to value. And by the way, I have a video that I've recently done on comping a property, so if you want to watch me analyze a real wholesale deal, check out the video right here, and that's going to help you understand that process. But let me just give you a quick overview or a quick example for all the new investors out there. Let's just say you have a property and we're trying to figure out what this property is worth. All right, if the property is a 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, 1-story property that was built in 1995 that needs a ton of work, then we want to look at all the recently sold properties within the same subdivision or the same general area that have similar characteristics to the subject property that's sold within the last 90 days or less. Now, it could take a long time to dig through all the recently sold properties to find out which ones are similar and which ones are not. And it's part art form and part technical. But let's just say that doing your online research, you found that 7 houses have recently sold in the area. The first one is similar to the subject property, but it has a pool where our subject property doesn't have a pool. And this one sold for $154 a square foot. The second one is 3 years newer and a tiny amount bigger, and it sold for $148 a square foot. The third one is an exact model match, but had one of its bathrooms recently remodeled, and it sold for $143 a square foot. The fourth one is a fully remodeled 2-story house with a pool, and it sold for $169 a square foot. The fifth one was 450 square foot bigger and on the same street as the subject property, and it sold for $151 a square foot. The sixth one was 15 years older, a tiny amount smaller, plus it was about a half mile away from the subject property. It sold for $137 a square foot. And the last property was around the same size and same age, but remodeled about 10 years ago, and it sold for $156 a square foot. Well, the first thing you have to do is take a look at all of your comps and rule out the ones that are not similar to the subject property. So in this example, we can exclude the fully remodeled 2-story house, right? Ours is 1 story. This is a fully remodeled 2-story house, and it also has a pool. And the one that is also 15 years older and far away from the subject property. So we can get rid of those 2 comps. That leaves us with 5 good comps. And how you compare apples to oranges in the real estate business is by averaging out the price per square foot of all the houses in the area and what they're selling for. So if you add up all 5 comps, price per square foot, then you divide them by 5, you end up with approximately $150 a square foot. So that means that our subject property is currently worth about $225,000 based on what similar properties in the area are selling for. And then what I do, once I comp the property, then I would typically set an appointment to go and view it, which would take hours of my time. I would take pictures, maybe some video. I'd fill out like a long checklist of all the repairs that are needed. Then I'd spend a ton of time trying to estimate those repairs, which consisted of me going to Home Depot and walking around the aisles aimlessly trying to like look at pricing and trying to figure out what materials cost. Then I'd fumble around trying to fill out my deal analysis spreadsheet, or worse, I would meet general contractors out at the property and have them bid out the project. Once I got all that information, that's when I would finally take everything I learned and I'd use it to position myself to finally make an offer to the seller, which hopefully they accepted. Now, if I was rehabbing properties and I was going through all that work, it might make a little bit of sense because it's so important to like nail exactly what to buy the property for, and you got to get it at the right price because real money is on the line when you're rehabbing. But with no money down wholesaling, it wasted a ton of my time. And because this business is simply a numbers game, right? Most of my offers, they didn't get accepted right away. So a ridiculous amount of time was being spent on non-deals, which really doesn't make sense. So I smartened up and I reversed the entire process. Moving forward, my goal was to get to a contract as fast as humanly possible. Then once I locked up a deal, that's when I would slow things down and spend the time necessary to deeply analyze the deal and estimate repairs. Because here's what I found. Not only did I get a lot more deals under contract, which is obviously good when it comes to wholesaling, but I also had a much easier time renegotiating the seller and stair-stepping them down in price than I did if I came right at them trying to get them to take a big discount right from the first negotiation. So here's how my new process went. And by the way, if you're getting a ton of value from this video, just do me a quick favor, smash the like button for me real fast so I can get some feedback from you guys as to whether you like these type of training videos from me. I appreciate you doing that. All right, so here's my new process. Step 1 was still generating the leads. Step 2 was still getting on the phone with the seller to learn more about them and their housing situation. And listen, I would spend a lot of time building rapport with them, gathering property data, establishing price, uncovering their motivation for selling, and setting up my higher authority. And then here's a training video I did where I actually break down how I talk to motivated sellers and what questions I ask them. So if you want to learn more about that, I highly recommend you check this video training out. All right? But what I'm looking for during this part of the process is I'm looking for 3 simple things at this point. Number 1 is motivation to sell quickly. They have to be motivated to sell and sell fast. Number 2 is equity in the property, so that way if they choose to sell at a discount, they can do so. And number 3 is desire to receive an all-cash offer versus selling through a traditional channel like through a real estate agent. Now, if the seller has these 3 things, I then move on to a new and improved step number 3, which was simply using Zillow and the Zillow Zestimate to get a quick comp on the property, then throwing out a ballpark offer range to the seller to see if they would consider it. And a range is the key right here. If you just hit them with a solid number, I found that this backfires sometimes, but if you hit them with the range, then it works. So for example, if Zillow said that the house was worth $200,000, I would create an offer range between 60% to 70% of what Zillow's Zestimate was, and I'd throw that out to the seller and I'd see how they react. And that 30 to 40% discount would be a big enough discount to encompass all the things that I need to do, including sales and closing costs. That way I get into the deal at the right price. Now, I would just say something like this. I would say, listen, Mr. Seller, knowing that I pay cash, I can close quickly, I can buy your property in its as-is condition, I can cover all the closing costs, and since I know that area really well, I could probably get my partner on board to offer you anywhere between $120,000 to $140,000 depending on repairs needed. Now listen, I know your property is older and it needs some work, and obviously I'm going to sharpen my pencil and I'm going to give you my highest and best offer once I actually come out and see it. But from everything you told me here today, would getting an all-cash offer between $120,000 to $140,000 cash work for you? Now, this is what I call a pre-close question. And it helps me avoid wasting time on non-deals where the seller wants like $190,000 or full retail $200,000, and I need to really be at $130,000 to actually make money on the deal and make the deal work. It also helps me avoid, doing a full comparable analysis on a property and doing a research on all the repairs needed if the property never had a chance of getting under contract in the first place. Now, obviously, if the seller doesn't freak out over the range, or if they say yes, they'd be interested in receiving an all-cash offer from you, then you move on to step number 4, which is to set an appointment, go and view the deal, and do whatever it takes to just get it under contract. Even if the seller negotiates you up from your $130,000 initial offer all the way up to $160,000, all right? And you really want to be much lower. Just remember this. This is a numbers game, and when it comes to wholesaling, the power is in the control of the property, not buying the property. It's in the contract, controlling the real estate. And you want to be able to structure the deals correctly when you put properties under contract to be able to give you options. And that's what's so cool about wholesaling, because you actually have multiple options. Option 1 is once you get it under contract, now you can slow things way down. You can go into a deep dive and do all the comparable analysis research, hunt for comps that support a lower offer. You can also hire an inspector to go out and inspect the property and use your home inspection as a tool to renegotiate, or you can have a general contractor go out and look at the deal and give you repair estimates, then use all that information you gathered to renegotiate the seller down to a lower price now that you have more facts and research. And just as a little side note or side thought, there's psychology working in your favor as to why a seller would be more likely to allow you to renegotiate them down to a lower price after you get a contract signed versus beforehand. And there were these 2 psychologists that did this research study, and they discovered that there's this thing called the power of commitment. And here's how it worked. They went to a horse betting track, and their names were like Knox and Dinkster or something like that. And they interviewed all the people placing bets, and they said, how confident are you, before they placed their bets, that your horse is going to win? And it was like a 50-50 shot with a lot of people, right? They weren't that confident. But then they would place their bets, and then they would come back around and they'd interview them again. They said, how confident are you now that you placed your bet? And surprisingly, this weird psychological thing happened where their confidence level went through the roof. And they determined that it was this power of commitment that was pulling people into this future cast world that they were living in, where they had all this hope that things were going to get done a certain way. Well, it happens in real estate as well, all right? And you can use the power of commitment to your benefit by just getting houses under contract and renegotiating them down later. You're going to find that you're going to have a much easier time to lower the offer price afterwards versus beforehand. All right? And then option number 2 is always to cancel the contract and walk away. The way we structure our paperwork gives you flexibility. All right? It's very low risk, if any risk, and that's why we love real estate wholesaling. But at least now you've only spent time on real potential deals, all right, versus a property you might not even end up getting under contract to begin with. All right? That's the key. The big epiphany in this whole video over the last, 10 minutes is reverse the process. Only focus and spend your time on properties you already have under contract versus doing all the research and all the heavy lifting beforehand. All right, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with this? All right, this general rule of thumb, this philosophy, it helps you only spend time doing comps and a massive amount of research on properties you control, which obviously makes a lot of sense. Now, also obviously, if You have a software like the Deal Automator, which is my flagship software, and you guys have seen other videos where I talk about the Deal Automator, doing comps, analyzing deals, doing market research, marketing, building websites, launching, direct mail campaigns. Pretty much everything is so much easier when you have a powerful tool like that, especially when it comes to wholesaling. But honestly, if you don't have the Deal Automator software, just using a site like Zillow and using their Zestimate, it works pretty dang well, and it's fairly accurate in most markets. So simply use that, move quickly, and don't make the mistake of wasting time on non-deals. All right, my friends, that's all I have for you in today's training video. Drop me a comment down below with your thoughts on this one. I really appreciate you spending some quality time with me. Smash that like button, and hopefully I earned a subscribe if you're a new subscriber, and turn on those post notifications so that way you get notified whenever I drop new content. Until next time, I am Cody Sperber, the original Clever Investor. Take care, comb your hair, Sperber out.